KSAP 96.9 on the FM. Once again, today we'll be discussing topics and things happening in the city of Port Arthur. And as always, before we get started, we want to make sure that everybody understands that the views and the opinion expressed on the radio station by its callers, hosts, and any studio guests is solely those of the caller, guests, or host, and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinion of the station or its management. I hope all of you had a good weekend. As always, we're going to start it off with the top and what's happening, and one of the things that we've been talking about, you've been reading in the newspaper lately, is our city manager's search. We started with 7 candidates, and the last information received was that we were down to the final 2. Now, they are scheduled to have the candidate come back in 2 weeks. They're in the process of doing a more thorough background check on the final 2 candidates, and from that point on, the city manager will be announced. That the city has used this year has been a little different than the one that we used in the previous year, previous election process rather. And I was fortunate enough to understand how we did it the last time, being a member of council and responsible for selecting the manager. And this time, being selected as a representative with the Citizens Search Advisory Group, I also had the opportunity to meet and hear some of the candidates and their responses. And today what we want to bring to you is some of the information and the procedures that were given and that were used within the search itself, and some of the questions asked of some of the candidates. The city search, I think, for the manager at some point in time will be there for all the citizens to understand, and to kind of listen to what candidates said. One way that you can view each candidate and hear what they have to say is by reviewing the interview conducted by the Search Advisory Group. It should be on the website because it was televised. And if it's on the website, then you will be able to hear these candidates respond to questions. And their response and the candidates themselves, you will get an opinion on which candidates impress you or who you feel is the best candidate. Now, one thing we must all understand and agree, that interviews are just what they say, interviews. Interviews doesn't necessarily give you the best person. But everyone at all levels conduct interviews because they feel that the person that answers questions and handle themselves in a certain fashion is normally the best person for the job. Now, that don't always add up that way, but we all know that you have to have some mechanism in place in order to make this happen. So, the way one do this in selecting someone, a CEO, president, chairman, is you just conduct interview. And of the people that come before you, you make a decision on which person you feel will be the best for the job based on the way they answer the questions and the way they handle themselves. So, with our city manager search, we had 7 individuals that vied for the city manager who came here to the city this past week and interviewed for the job. And during that day, they met with the Citizens Advisory Group. And when they met with the City's Advisory Group, we had the opportunity to question each candidate. The group itself were given 7 questions that they wanted us to ask the candidate. And when the committee or the group met together, the group decided that those are good questions. However, some of them we didn't feel comfortable that it was questions that we were interested in, or questions that we didn't agree would be the question we would want to ask. So we were allowed to revise questions or change a question and put our own question in, but we were limited to 7 questions. We would ask these candidates 7 questions. Now, all questions will be asked the same way to all candidates. So what we're going to discuss, so that you will understand, is some of the questions that were asked and how the committee felt about the applicants. And then we're going to go through the council and what happened at that level. And we're going to end up with where we are today, waiting for background checks on the other 2 candidates and announcing the chosen candidate. I get confused with finalists and semi-finalists and all this. I even stated that to the search firm. I told them, I find it hard that we talk about 7 finalists. Normally you get the finalists, you talk about your last 2 standing, but we were at 7 and they keep saying finalists. So that word, I get confused when I use it when talking about our city manager search, because we was using the word finalists in a form that I didn't understand. Everything is semi-finalists until you get to the last 2 standing. Then you say they are the finalists, but there are different methods, and I'm not hung up on terminology as much as the process and how you do the job. So one of the questions that was asked of the candidates was, briefly describe your personal management style. That was one of the questions. So each candidate would describe, how they lead and their style of leadership. And we felt that was a good question because it will allow us to understand each candidate and what to expect if they were city manager. How will they do their job? How will they be in charge? So that question there was one that we wanted to ask, and we wanted to ask first because when you find out a person's style and how they operate, then you can move along from there. The second question we asked was, how do you effectively handle so many bosses who may sometimes have differing goals and agendas? Now, the reason that question was asked of the candidates, we know here in Port Arthur that we have council members who have personal agendas. We know that we had council members who don't understand how to work with one another. It's personal. I don't like you. I'm not going to talk to you. If I talk to you, it's going to be demeaning, condescending, or disrespectful. I don't like you. And we know that that is not what elected officials should do. You know, when you're serving the citizens elect you to serve and represent them. Therefore, citizens doesn't elect you to work with who you want to work with. They elect you to represent them and work with the people that other citizens elected to represent and work for them. So we thought that question was important so we can hear how they're planning on dealing with council members who have personal agendas. That would turn out to be a real good question because most of the candidates answered it in a fashion and a form that we were looking for, in the sense that they made it clear to us that in our form of government, you know, the city manager runs the city on a day-to-day basis, and there are some council members, and some of them had the opportunity to be city managers, have worked as city manager, and have worked in a council manager form of government in which they knew that all that council members were their bosses. And they said that there are council members they know have their own pet peeves or things they want to accomplish for that district, their constituents, and sometimes they feel that they have to get it done, and that's the only thing that matters. So they basically said that they would simply tell that council member that it's a good idea, bring it back to the full council, and let the council determine if they want to do that and where the money is going to come from, how they're going to fund it. Now, if the candidate that is chosen holds to that, that would eliminate a lot of the personal agenda that has went on in this city, for the simple reason that council will make decisions. I know, since I've been involved with the politics here in Port Arthur, there are council members that are getting things done and they're not going through council. It's centered around a report. It's centered around, oh, he okay. So we need to get to whereby all council members have the same procedures by which they go about getting things done, and the full council decides on what we do and what we spend the money on, and not I like him, I don't like him. And that's what's been going on. So that question was a question that we felt real comfortable asking the candidates. And once again, we're talking about the city manager search and how it was conducted, and the roles of the search advisory group and the city council. And you're listening to The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. And if you feel you would like to comment on anything pertaining to the city manager search, how it was conducted, do so. Simply call area code 409-982-0247. The third question we asked them is, of a time when you had to reduce expenses, how did you determine where to cut costs and what was the impact? Basically, understanding that we have been dealing with a deficit now for several years, the purpose of that question was to find out if they had been in a job where they had to actually cut expenses in order to meet budgets. And if they had, what did they do? And what was the impact? In other words, what was the results of it? Did you accomplish what you wanted to do or not? Now, one of the candidates in our response was he had to cut the deficit, and what he did was, he chose reducing the employee level the number of persons employed, and he did other things, he said. And he said the end result was that he was able to reduce the budget and accomplish what he set out to do. And he said the impact was he lost his job because some people didn't like his decision. Well, I respect that. And evidently he's working with in a place where probably someone figured, well, that ain't the way I want to do it, but he did wrong, so we fired him. And it leads me to say another statement one of the candidates made that stood out in my mind was, he said that when working for many bosses, which was the previous question we discussed, he said he had an old professor that told him, when you're in a job like a city manager position, you don't worry about if you're going to get fired. He said that type of job, you always wonder when you're going to get fired, because it's a job in which you serve at the will of the council. And whatever the will of the council is what they choose. Therefore, you cannot perform this job with the intent of doing what you think won't get you fired. You need to just do the job. And those are the type of things, when you're listening to people respond to you, it strikes you as that's what you want. That's the attitude you need. If you're going to take the job and you're more interested in pleasing people than doing the job, then eventually you're not going to be successful at the job. But you have to do the job. Now, when you're doing the job, if the job's not being done, then it's easy to know why you need to be fired. But if you're doing the job, you don't have to worry about whether somebody likes it or not. Because what's the old famous saying? You can't please all of the people all of the time. But you need to do your job. The next question we asked, and this one here I thought was very interesting, because once again, considering politics here in Port Arthur, I was able to equate to that question. You have been appointed city manager and have conducted a review of department heads. Determine that one of them should be terminated. You are confronted by two council members who indicate that they do not agree with the decision based on their friendship with this department head. How would this impact your decision? How would you handle the situation? Once again, all of the candidates responded that they are the city manager. That is solely their responsibility. It is solely their decision. And we have a caller already. Okay, caller, you on air. Caller, you on air. Okay, I guess caller didn't get in. But back to what we were talking. The question was terminating a department head and two council members against it. Well, once again, all of the candidates basically and essentially said that is the city manager's responsibility and sole responsibility. He or she is hired for that purpose. And they basically said they will explain to these council members that, this is for the best interest of the city and provide service to citizens. And therefore, this person needs to be terminated. And they all said they would terminate. Now, I spoke earlier when I started the show and said that we conduct interviews, and a lot of times we base it on what people say. Well, I just want to say that, that's something that I had a problem with our previous city manager about, was he said that he will evaluate the staff, and if he needs to have people terminated, he would do that. Instead, 18 months, we wasn't getting anything done in the city, nobody was terminated. So in my opinion, that was a good answer he gave when he said in 90 days he would be able to do that, but then when it was time, he didn't do it. And I think it was because of the relationship that some council members established with employees, where they go out their way to try to protect their job as opposed to worrying about the service that is being provided to our citizens. Another question we asked was, the City of Port Arthur Water and Sewage and Solid Waste Funds are losing rather than making money as an enterprise fund. What strategies would you use to enhance these funds? Well, that's where you found the answers varied. And if you listen to the people that gave the answer, as opposed that were city managers or had been city managers, as opposed to those who were not city managers or had not served as city managers, you can see what a response will be different, because those who were city managers or had been city managers and currently serving as city managers, they all said, it's hard to say what I will do. There are certain things that I would have to check. There are certain areas that will cause you to lose money. So before saying what I will do, I will first have to find out in these different areas, where is the problem? And they named these specific areas, which let you know that they understood how the Public Works Department and the Water Utilities Department work. And that separates people that knows as opposed to the people who haven't and don't understand the full mechanism of city government and how each time. That is why you find city manager jobs are jobs that people try to equate to someone knowing at least how it works. I compare the city manager job with school superintendents. A lot of times you find superintendents are hired because, one, they are at a small school and they move to a larger school. And they keep moving to a larger school. And each time they move to a larger school, of course, they got larger salaries. And that is the purpose of it. And a lot of assistant managers of assistant superintendents of school districts, when they get their first job, it's normally at a smaller school as superintendent. You're not going to go from assistant superintendent and go to a school larger than the school district that you're assistant at. So it's a progression where people are judged by their years of experience and their knowledge, as opposed to, like some people wants to say, well, everybody need a chance to start. I agree. But there it goes. The more time you have doing the job, the more experience you have, the more knowledge the longer you do it, the more you know about it. So that was the fifth question. The sixth question we asked was, how do you characterize yourself and your approach to the council manager? What we want to know is, how do you fit in this form of government? And once again, the answers were based on people who have served as city manager, council manager form of government, or have served as city manager, as opposed to those who haven't, because those who haven't, they're just talking. But those who have made it clear to us that they understand that they run the city on a day-to-day operation, and they the ones make the routine decisions solely by themselves. And that council set the policies and directive, but he is the one solely responsible for executing it. It is his responsibility. And council as a whole can make changes and direct it, but not individual council members or a couple of council members talking with him or her. They made sure that they let us know that we understand I run it, 2-3 people in my ear is not going to sway me. But once again, it's the right answer. But it's an interview. The question is, you say that, if you are selected, will you do that? And the last question we asked was, why do you want to be city manager of Port Arthur? Now, the reason we asked that question, because we all knew that every candidate had been briefed and discussed with Port Arthur, our good parts, our bad parts. I'm quite sure all of them have went online and watched some of the city council meetings. They all had access to our budget. They all knew what was happening in and around the city. So just like we were given information on the candidates were given information on Port Arthur and given the opportunity to take a look at it to find out if I want to apply for that job. So that questionnaire was a question to just get a feel for how the person felt about coming to our city. Now, granted, the search committee or the search advisory group did not have as much information on candidates as our council people had. So to say that what the search committee or the search advisory group decided was more in line than what council decided would be a false statement, because once again, the council had more time, the council went in depth, and the council had more information pertaining to these particular candidates than the citizen had. But what it did, it gave citizens an opportunity to ask questions that were important to the citizens here in the city, to get a overall picture of the candidate, and then provide that input from the citizen standpoint to the council, to let the council know that although we don't have all this information, based on these questions that we ask, that gives us a good feel for different areas of the candidate, that these are the candidates for our city manager, to be not the council city manager, to be our city manager. And it worked out fine. Now, let's talk about the search advisory group, okay? We had myself on there, former council member. We had Miss Diane Pellady. She is a citizen, very involved with our city. We had Richard Wyckoff, a businessman, representative for Coca-Cola Company, and also a member of the EDC. We had former Senator Carl Parker. We had Warren Fields, who's very active in our community and part of it. We had Reverend Lloyd Scott on the board, and we had Mr. Roosevelt Petrie, President and CEO of GP Industries here in Port Arthur. So we had a good slice of citizens here in Port Arthur. And amazingly, 8 people selected the top 3 applicants. And it was done in a fashion that there was not any question or dispute about how they work. Everyone accepted how they panned out. And when given the information on who was the top people, everyone accepted it and agreed. Now, you talk about a good slice of citizens on the group, and they came to a decision that was all agreeable and accepted by all its members. So, we done our part here in the city, and we felt real good about that, you know. And forgot one number. Miss Yoshi Alexander, who was a former director of 1 Hour Departments here in the city. And anyone who knows her knows she's a very devout person, Christian and all. So, and I'm sorry I forgot her name, but those are the 8 people who actually was there. And we had one member who was unable to attend, Ms. Savoy, Audrey Savoy, who we know is a very active member here in our community and in the city of Port Arthur. But this was done, and this information was compiled, and the candidates were listed in an order in which they were ranked by this committee. Now, the thing about our search group is, what we did was we said they'll come in one by one, and we'll ask these 7 questions, and after they answer them, we will give them a score from 1 to 5. 1 to 5. Meaning, the max someone could score is 40 points, and the least they could score is 8 points. So, not caring about who's scoring what, who is who, you just give them this value. And at the end of each interview, we tallied the points. And, you know, we had one individual that scored 38 out of 40, and that was the top person. And we had 2 people that had 33 and 32.5, which is basically the same, and they were second. So, although the citizens never communicated with one another about the applicants, never discussed the information or the applicants, but were able to sit down and listen to them answer these 7 questions and come to a conclusion that was basically in agreement. And you could tell by the score that basically everybody was being scored by, well, given a score from each member that basically was like what the other member was doing. So, you know, it shows that everybody saw the same thing. Everybody viewed the candidates individually as we saw them. It wasn't one person saw that person as a 2, and another one said, well, he's a 5. You could tell by the scores that they were pretty much consistent with how they scored the candidate, which means you got 8 people seeing it the same way. So pretty good information, and I thought we done a great job, and it was sent to the council. Now, the council did their scoring and ranking and selection process. Now, as a citizen and as a citizen of Port Arthur, if you were serving on an advisory group, and you went through all of that, and you found out that you did contribute and you did get things done, the information that was given to council should fit somewhere into the equation. Well, the problem with that is the council did not use that information. In fact, what the council did was passed out a copy of the scores that we, the search group, gave them. They gave each member of council a copy of it. But they did not discuss this as an item whereby we want to provide you with this information so that we could consider this when we make it our decision. So, we need to ask ourselves, when we as citizens are asked to provide service, should it be accepted? Why will you ask the citizens to participate and provide you input if you're not going to use it? That's the big question of the day. The Citizens Advisory did a good job of fulfilling the requirements and done a good job of being consensus with their selection. Should their input have been considered in a fashion that it weighed in, or it was just to say citizens were involved? It's like a kid walk up to adults playing a game and says, I want to play. So if you're playing cards, we say cards. So you give the kid a deck of cards and you get another kid to go sit down and play cards with him. Is it the same as your game that the kid wants to play in? Or did you give the kid something to satisfy them? I was disappointed that the search committee group did not have more of an input in the city manager's search. And when we get to talking about the results of it, we haven't completed it yet, but it'd be pretty interesting to find out the last steps, because we're very close to naming a city manager, and it's up to the council now to ensure that they select and bring to us a good candidate who can move our city forward. There are things that came up and questions that were asked. I think the 7 questions that the search group asked the that the candidates, I think every member of council should have been present, should have been allowed to listen to some of the questions that the council had and hear the candidates answer the questions of council. Now, when it was time for council to do their deliberations, no, I'm not in favor of citizens sitting in on their deliberations, because that is their deliberation. However, there's nothing wrong with someone listening to you ask a question and a person replying to the question. There's nothing secret about it. I'm surprised that we don't do the open interviews. The first time I sat in on the city manager search upon coming on council, when we got down to the last 2, We've done it in a public forum where people could have come in and just listened to them respond to the questions that were asked of council members. Well, I see no reason where you can't conduct all of your interviews in an open meeting. You know, you can always go into your closed session for your deliberation and your discussions, which I feel needs to be done in closed session. However, the candidate's response to the council's questions should not be of nature that should not be known by the public. A council member's question to a candidate should not be a question that the citizen should not be privy to. If we would do more open, then people can have their opinion. Now, they're not in this decision-making process, but transparency sometimes can bring about questions. And with that, we're going to take about a 3-minute break, and then we're going to come back and close it up with the city manager search. So we'll be back shortly. So you want to make sure I come back on the air?
Well, I've been debating whether or not a question, because I think you covered a great deal of it fairly well. But I wasn't quite clear on whether or not some of the characteristics or questions that you all asked of the candidate were or were not similar to those that council may be asking of the city manager.
Well, you know, AC, that was the whole point when we reviewed these questions as a group, and we reviewed them from not being an elected official, but we were reviewing them as, you know, something that we would want to ask and know of this guy or this lady that's coming in. So we redone some of the questions and we added our questions, but those were not the questions that originally were given to us to ask. But the question that was originally given us to ask, we didn't want to ask it because we didn't want to know that as citizens. These are the things we wanted to know, and we tried to, since they limited us to only 7 questions, we're trying to get questions that will give them a chance to respond to something that we feel gonna fit into what is actually here and happening here. Like the one with having 9 bosses, 9 council members with people with different agendas. You know, we got problem with our enterprise funds thing. So we wanted them to respond to questions so we could get a feel for how you feel about this situation here in Port Arthur and how you would attack it, you know?
I thought that this was a real good opportunity for some communications between Citizen Advisory Committee and the council, in as much as it was an opportunity for both groups to see what it was that the other perceived to be the issues that needed to be addressed. And that's just separate from what the candidates thought. It was an opportunity for the council to see what citizens thought, as expressed by the representatives for the committee, were the issues that were concerned to the city, and for the committee to hear from the council what areas they thought were a concern that they would want a city manager to address. So I hope that opportunity was materialized and then some communications took place there, because that's just a sidebar, plus to having an advisory committee part of the process.
Well, everybody has ways of doing things, and I don't get caught up too much with someone having their way of doing things, because as long as it accomplishes your task and meet the mission, then I learned that it's good. But this citizens advisory group, for the work that they put in, and the way they conducted it and done their business, to not have that information incorporated in your system, whereby you could at least pass this out to all your council members and say, hey, let's discuss how they arrived at this, and these are their top people, this is how they rank these 7 people, and why don't we get one of them here to speak on behalf of the group and let us know why they did this or how they feel. That is what I call providing input. But to say you go through all of this, you put it in the media, we're going to have a search advisory group, they come in and perform the task, then you just take the paperwork and pass it out to the council member, and that's it. That is not provided input. That is deception, if you ask me, because the people on the committee felt that what we did was going to be incorporated in some fashion or form as input that would be considered. But that did not happen. So
you're saying that the information that you have indicates that the council did not meet or communicate amongst themselves reviewing the report the committee submitted in sort of a group in a council format, so they discussed the results of the advisory committee's report. It was just kind of distributed on to the city council members, and then when they went for their regular business, they just went ahead with that. Do I understand that's what you're saying?
that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And it goes back to our elected officials have to, one day we get the people who are actually citizens already and understand the importance of transparency and being able to discuss any matters in open meeting and let citizens know what's going on in our city. I have come to the conclusion that when you do not open your government up to citizens so that they can see and know what's going on, it's corruption. Or you got something to hide. If you wanted to include citizens into this search, then you should have came up with a system that the citizens would have provided input that was considered. Now, I didn't say the sole basis, but at least was considered and a factor in. If you're not going to do that, why even apply? Now, one thing I do know, that the council method of eliminating the candidates is that everybody rank their people, okay? And they're given numbers. Well, if they had just taken the advisory group board ranking and throw that in, all it did was increase the numbers. But the numbers would have had an impact, because you're now taking whatever that group did, you let that group be one of your council members. So now you taking in consideration what they did. Now that input that they provided actually had something to contribute to the selection process. And that's fair. That's the way. When you do not do that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take care of all business behind closed doors. There come a time when the council has to understand you don't need to be behind those closed doors so much. This city has more discussion behind closed doors than we almost have in open meetings.
I certainly don't know if each individual council member did not consider the advisory committee's report while making their rankings. That's just a different subject. However, I do agree with you. An opportunity was lost for some unity building in with the council and the community, because here it was a community advisory committee that strove, their effort was to represent the views of the community, the broad section, as you indicated, to the council in this process, looking forward to hiring a city manager that will move the city forward. So it certainly was an opportunity lost, and my concern is if you don't handle this in the proper etiquette, then what sort of expectations of further volunteers moving to, like, they're just cursory. They're there, and as you say, it's busy work. And I mean, one of the things you want is participation, and you want some unity, and you want to be able to feel like the city, the citizens and the committees, along with the council, are in support of the city manager coming in and getting things moved down the road. And this is an opportunity, I think, unfortunately, that was lost.
Well, I tell you right now, whenever you want to integrate someone's information into a system, you got to first understand the systems. Now, having served on council and understanding how this selection process is going to work and how council is going to get to whereby they give their ranking of the candidates and their scoring of the candidates, I can tell you right now, the only way a citizens advisory group input could have been impacted with council members is to have allowed their input to be put into the evaluation process. And the reason I say that, because here I am a council, okay? And the people elect me to try to do the right thing, to make the right decisions, to select the right person. I've only got one shot at doing that. So I listen to all these people, myself, I listen to all these people. Now I have to rank them. It's unfair for me to not rank them the way I evaluated them because of what an advisory group have provided me. That's not going to happen. And for anybody to say they did, I think they would be lying, because they only have one shot to get their preference in. And if they share, they lose their one shot. So it's not theirs. So if you were going to use a search advisory group in that fashion, understanding the process, they should have known that when it came down to them, when they get to the part whereby they rank their candidates individually as council members, they know that they should have taken the ranking of the candidates according to the search advisory group, because we did it in that fashion so that we know how their system works. So we put our results in a form that matches what they did. So all they do was just slide it in. So whereby you say this candidate got 4 number 1, 4 2s. Well, guess what? All you're doing is adding one more member. Is like a silent member, but you count those standings. The same 7 we ranked. That's what council did. So if they ranked them, we ranked them, why didn't ours count?
I see you.
If ours didn't count, you didn't need us because there's not one council member that put their ranking based on what we had. Not one. And you can't expect them to do that because they are not there to do the ranking based on input. They doing the ranking based on a council member. So if you want to incorporate the council member, a search group, you have to incorporate their results. You can't tell the council members, well, don't do your results. You got to consider this and then do your results. No. So basically, this was a process of something someone thought of, and they did it more so for show and media than they did for it to create the impact and have the results of the publicized function of this advisory board. This advisory board was supposed to provide input. We did that, but the input was not used. See? And that's the things that we have to be aware of, and those are things that our elected leaders are sitting back and letting people make decisions that their decisions are more deceptive to the citizens, and they're not really thought of real well. But transparency, there's no reason that the public could not have been invited to a session when council was questioning these candidates. All 7 of those candidates could have answered questions from council and be able to judge for themselves what they thought of these candidates. Because you know what? Their thoughts and ideas are not politically motivated. And if you keep it from the public, you can always interject politics. And that's why I said our city government has to become transparent. And once it becomes transparent, you get a whole bunch of different results. Because I can tell you, I've been there, done that. They have some people, when they upstairs in front of the camera, they all for the city. And they got all the right vote, all the right answer. But close that door downstairs, and you would be surprised at some of the things come out their mouths. But they supposed to be moving our city forward. So it's about transparency, and I think the search advisory group done a good job, and it went real smooth for our council. I don't know about the voting, but I know once they get to rolling, they got rolling, and where we get the disconnect is council stayed in closed doors too much. So the process went well, but what happened, what your results are, we as citizens don't know. We don't know whether it's the right choice, or we don't know whether it's a political choice, because you didn't expose the citizens to the candidates. They should have saw all 7 candidates at least once, so they could have formed an opinion for themselves. The search advisory board did. We saw them once, and limited. None of us asked questions. Only one person asked all 7 of those questions. So that means the other 7 of us came to basically the same conclusion about every candidate, and all we did was listen to them answer questions. So the public can do the same thing if you put the candidate before in a forum where people who want to listen can come and listen. But why put it in closed session? Why keep it from your public? I believe without transparency, people have agendas. Because if you make things transparent, you're not afraid that people see what you had to choose from and how you chose. You have no worries about that. You don't worry about those things. And the fact that council will deliberate in closed session, and that's when it's your time that you be able to sit back and talk to one another and work out an agreement, or you pull out the guns and you shoot it out, and whoever left standing made the decision, or everybody pull out their knives. But when it's all over with, you got a decision, and when you come back to the public, people come out wearing bandages or casts and stuff, but everybody's smiling and saying, we all agree.
Right. And what? Okay. What I would hope is that if there is someone in the listening audience who disagrees with what you said and have rational and reasonable explanations for the counter, that they would respect the citizens and the Breeze listeners by gracing our ears through the airwaves with their position.
And AC, I'm gonna tell you something. That's about the only downside to my show since I've been doing it. Is that I don't get very many calls that contradicts what I say. But then I sit back, I think about it. I stay away from my opinion, and I kind of stick to things that I could go back and grab and say this is this, And maybe I ought to start, get somebody to oppose it, and when they know that I don't have nothing in black and white to support what I'm saying, maybe they may come back and challenge it, But it's pretty hard challenging something that is factual. But I would like to have people to call in and give different versions of information I put out, because I'm not here to try to tell people what to do, how to think, and I try most of the time to stay out my opinion, just stick with the facts and let the people come to the conclusion. But the show is mostly to give you information and inform you of things that you should be aware of. That's all I do this show for. I don't do the show to influence people. I don't do it to commend people. I don't do it to embarrass or attack people. I do it to inform people, only to inform people. And I like people like you, because when you call in, you always want to comment, and you giving the citizens' viewpoint. You ask very closed-in questions where I can't just give any kind of response, because it's not one that you just could throw an answer back to you. But I like that dialogue. I wish more people would call in. You don't have to dispute what I say, but call in and give your opinion about it. I'm getting information, and I give it to you. It takes me more time to get the information and get it together to do a show than it takes to do the show.
Yeah.
So with talk, that's fine, because then I know, some of this time I done beating the streets or reading this and reading that, so I could go and tell them, because the show normally an hour, but it takes me hours to make sure that I got the facts. Because the last thing I want to do on this show is to start saying things that I cannot prove it to be true.
Two things, and this is from the book of Human Nature. One, is the day that you come to the show and you don't have your documentation and you don't have the preparation, people probably will call. Or two, when you say something that's really controversial, and you know, controversy seems to get attention.
Oh, yeah.
And as you say that, but that could be very well counterproductive to the whole object of the show, the whole goal and objective. But all I can ask is that you continue, because we learn a lot and we need to know a lot.
I sure appreciate what you said, AC, and I do it for the people like you, and I know although people don't call in, when they see me around town, there are people that listen, and they like finding out true information. So, with that, I appreciate you, brother, and you have a good week.
All right, and God bless you.
You too, AC. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 with It's Your City, and we discussed the city manager search. And before I go off there, I would just like to say that Gabriel Funeral Home at 2500 Parker Street, Port Arthur, Texas. Okay, caller, we're not going to close on the call.
Hello, how you doing, sir? Are we having an open mic discussion, or are you still just talking about this is the city?
We've come to just It's Your City right now, but I'm closing, and Tay House will be coming on next, so he'll have the opportunity. If you want to, if it's something you're talking with about our city manager search that we comment on It's Your City, I'll be glad to entertain the question.
No, sir, no. This is mostly pertaining to the athletic department for the PAISD.
Okay. Well,
mainly the football team. Is there any way we might can get a representative like Coach Doucet to come on the air, and we can question him about some of the things that the fans and the taxpayers are displeased with the football program.
Well, I tell you what.
Yeah.
And that's what I do here for It's Your City. It's Your City, and it's not just political. You know, I want to get information to our listeners, and I tell you what I will do. I will get with Mr. Doucet and ask him if he and his the head coach will come to the station and just talk about where they are, where they're going, what they do, and all. And I just ask that, you know, hey, I don't care about no hard questions as long as we don't do personal attacks. That's cool. But I tell you what, I will make it a point to try to go and check on this information for you, and if I could get them maybe next Monday, I will invite them, providing the station manager will approve their guest. But I will work to do that for you. If that's a topic that you feel we need to have discussed with It's Your City, and that's what it's about, It's Your City. So I'll work on that for you. And
okay, class. Okay, class, man, I appreciate it. Do your best, Harold.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
And once again, we're going to close with It's Your City, but I like to make the announcement that is available to help you prepare for your loved one's final arrangement. No matter the age, it's never too late or too early to pre-plan for this very important event. Just jot this number down and give Gabriel Funeral Home a call. The number is 409 983 6661. Remember, for free consultation answering all of your pre-needs questions and your loved one's final funeral arrangement, give Gabriel Funeral Home a call. Gabriel Funeral Home, worthy of your trust. 2500 Proctor Street, Port Arthur, Texas. The number is 409-6661. 661. And with that, we're going to tell you, have a lovely week, and we'll see you next Monday with It's Your City.
Do whatever it is, you got it.